I sat at my son's dining table, but not at the head where Marcus usually placed me. This Thanksgiving, I was positioned between his wife's college roommate and someone's +1 I'd never met. The centerpiece was taller than usual, blocking my view of the fireplace where our family photos hung, including the one from Marcus's architecture school graduation. Vanessa had outdone herself with the decorations. Everything was Pinterest perfect, from the sage green table runner to the hand-lettered place cards. Mine was the only one facing away from the main conversation. Small thing, I told myself. Probably just ran out of room at the main section of the table. Marcus stood up when dessert was being cleared, his wine glass catching the chandelier light. My chest tightened with that mother's pride that never quite goes away, even when your child is 34 and wearing a watch that costs more than your first car. "I want to make a toast," he announced, and the room quieted. Vanessa smiled up at him, her hand resting on her wine glass. "To Mom, who finally gets to be selfish. Too bad she wasn't there when we needed her priorities straight." The room did that thing where everyone pretends they didn't hear what they just heard. Someone coughed. Vanessa's mother, Patricia, made a small approving sound into her napkin. I set my fork down slowly, that bite of pumpkin pie suddenly cement in my mouth. "Marcus," I started, but he was already sitting down, and the conversation was pivoting to football, to Black Friday plans, to anything that wasn't the bomb he'd just dropped in the middle of his mother's favorite holiday. I should mention that 3 days earlier, I'd told Marcus about my cruise. 3 months, leaving in January. Panama Canal, New Zealand, Fiji, Hawaii. 16 countries. The trip I'd been planning since Robert died 8 years ago. The one I'd kept pushing back because Marcus needed help with the business, then the wedding, then the down payment on this house, $35,000 for the cruise. From my pension, my savings, my life. The same amount Marcus had asked me to co-sign for 2 years ago, when his architecture firm needed capital. I'd said no then, and apparently, we were still having that conversation. I made it through dinner. I've always been good at that, making it through things. 35 years of teaching 7th graders trains you to keep your face neutral when someone's testing you. I helped clear plates. I complimented the meal. I kissed Marcus goodbye at the door, like nothing had happened. In my car, I sat in his driveway for 10 minutes before I could turn the key. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Mom, don't be dramatic. It was just a joke. Jokes are supposed to be funny." I drove home to my small 2-bedroom house, the one I'd bought after Robert died, modest and manageable and completely paid off. I made tea. I opened my laptop, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a spreadsheet. It took me 4 hours to reconstruct 34 years of motherhood in dollars and cents. I had some of it in old tax returns, some in bank statements I'd kept for reasons I couldn't quite remember, some in memory. Violin lessons from age 7 to 14. Tam, bon jam. He'd begged for them, practiced for 3 months, then discovered basketball. Basketball camps, every summer, age 14 to 18. Muay Thai, home. The car I'd co-signed for when he was 19, which I'd ended up paying off when he decided to backpack through Europe instead of working that summer. Muribon, Num Chum. Architecture school at Penn State, the difference between in-state tuition and what his scholarships didn't cover. Hai Mui Tam. Hong. The wedding, Mui Lam, Hong. I'd offered 10, but Vanessa wanted the venue by the lake, and what was another 5,000 when it's your only son's wedding? The down payment on the house, the one I was sitting in tonight for Thanksgiving, the one where I'd been seated next to strangers. Mui Tam. Hong. Add in the birthdays, the Christmases, the mom. Things are tight this month calls. The furniture I'd bought them when they'd first moved in together. The laptop, the phone upgrades, the suits for job interviews. $95,000. $95,000 over 34 years. On a teacher's salary that had never broken $60,000 a year, even at the end, I stared at the number until it stopped looking like numbers and started looking like the answer to a question I hadn't known I was asking. The next morning, I didn't call Marcus. I called the cruise line instead and upgraded my cabin. Ocean view, private balcony, priority dining. Another $4,000. I booked the excursions I'd marked as too expensive. The helicopter tour in New Zealand, the private island dinner in Fiji, the wine country tour in Chile. I called my sister in Phoenix. Carol, I need you to keep an eye on the house while I'm gone. January through March. The cruise? Linda, you're actually doing it? I'm actually doing it. What did Marcus say? I thought about the toast, about sitting next to strangers at my son's table, about 34 years of priorities. Marcus thinks I'm being selfish. Carol was quiet for a moment. Good, it's about time. I didn't tell Marcus about the upgraded cabin or the extended trip. I didn't tell him much of anything. When he called the week after Thanksgiving, I kept it short. Yes, I was fine. Yes, the cruise was still happening. No, I didn't want to talk about it. Mom, you're being ridiculous. It was a toast. Everyone makes jokes at holidays. What was the joke, Marcus? Explain it to me. He sighed, that particular sigh he'd perfected at age 15, that meant I was being unreasonable. You know what I meant. You said no when I needed you, and now you're spending money on yourself. It's just. The timing is ironic. I said no to risking my retirement by co-signing a loan for a business that folded 16 months later anyway. Silence. Because that was true, and we both knew it. Marcus's firm had closed 18 months after I'd refused to co-sign. He'd found the capital elsewhere, from Vanessa's parents as it turned out, and it hadn't mattered. The market had shifted, the clients hadn't materialized, and the dream died like most dreams do. Slowly, then all at once. I have to go, I said. I'm meeting Carol for lunch. Mom. I hung up. Christmas came. I wasn't invited to Marcus and Vanessa's house. We're doing something small this year, Vanessa texted. Just immediate family. I was immediate family when they needed a down payment, I thought but didn't say. Instead, I spent Christmas with Carol in Phoenix, hiking Camelback Mountain and eating tamales from her favorite food truck. My calves burned, my lungs worked, and I felt more alive than I had in months. January 3rd. I boarded the ship in Fort Lauderdale. My cabin was on the 9th deck, and when I stepped onto my private balcony and saw nothing but ocean, something in my chest that had been clenched tight for years finally loosened. The first week was rocky. I kept checking my phone, kept expecting it to ring, kept wondering if Marcus would call to apologize or at least acknowledge that maybe, possibly, he'd been an ass. He didn't call. I took a salsa dancing class on board. I was terrible at it, but the instructor, a man from Colombia named Roberto, was patient and funny and didn't seem to care that I was 62 and kept stepping on his feet. By the time we reached the Panama Canal, I could do a basic step without looking at my feet. I met people. Suzanne, a widow from Vermont, who was learning to sail. Tim and George, a couple from Seattle celebrating 40 years together. Maria, a retired engineer from Texas who'd just gotten divorced and was finding herself, whatever the hell that means. We had wine on deck. We watched sunsets. We told each other our stories. The real ones. Not the Instagram versions. I told them about the toast. About the spreadsheet. About sitting between strangers at my own son's Thanksgiving table. Fuck him, Maria said, which was shocking, coming from a grandmother of 7, and then we all laughed so hard the waiter came to check if we were okay. I was okay. For the first time in a long time, I was okay. My phone rang at high AM ship time when we were 3 days from Auckland. I was deep asleep, dreaming about salsa dancing, and it took me 3 tries to answer it. Mom. Marcus's voice was tight. Mom, I need you to call me back. It's an emergency. I sat up, adrenaline flooding my system the way it does when your child uses that word, no matter how old they are. What's wrong? Is someone hurt? No, not hurt. But Mom, I need your help. The firm, we're being sued. The client from the harbor project, they're claiming breach of contract. My lawyer says I need $50,000 for legal fees, and I need it now, or, wait. I turned on the bedside lamp. Your firm closed. 2 years ago. I reopened it. 6 months ago. With partners this time. Mom, it was going great, but this client is insane, and if I don't fight this, my reputation is destroyed. I've already called Vanessa's parents, but they're tapped out from. He stopped. From what? Another pause. From the last investment. In the firm. They're already in for 40,000. I walked to the balcony, phone pressed to my ear, and stared at the black ocean under the stars. You took $40,000 from Vanessa's parents for a new firm, and didn't tell me? I knew you'd disapprove. I would have told you to be careful. Same thing. His voice cracked. Mom, I know you're angry about Thanksgiving. I was an asshole. I know that. But I'm in trouble, and I need help, and you're my mother. There it was. The card he'd learned to play at age 5 and had never stopped playing. You're my mother. As if that trumped everything else. Every boundary, every limit. Every time I'd needed to say no. Marcus. I'm on a cruise. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I know, Mom. I know. And I'm sorry to interrupt your trip, but can you wire the money? Just wire it, and you can go right back to your vacation. My vacation. Like I was on a weekend trip to the beach, not living the first completely selfish months of my life. No. What? No. I'm not wiring you $50,000. Mom, you don't understand. I understand that you have partners now who should share legal costs. I understand that you reopened a firm that already failed once. I understand that you took $40,000 from your in-laws and are now trying to take $50,000 from me. What I don't understand is why any of that is my emergency. Because I'm your son. His voice went high and tight, the way it used to when he was 7 and didn't get what he wanted. Because I need you. You need my money. That's not fair. Neither was your toast at Thanksgiving. Neither was not inviting me to Christmas. Neither was taking money from Vanessa's parents, but not even telling me you'd reopened the firm. I was shaking now, but my voice was steady. Teaching 7th graders, remember? You learn to stay calm when someone's losing it. Marcus, every time I rescue you, I rob you of the chance to figure it out yourself. That's therapy talk. That's bullshit, Mom. Maybe. But it's my bullshit. And it's my money. And the answer is no. I could lose everything. Then you'll lose it, and you'll survive, and you'll learn. I took a breath. I lost everything when your father died. The life I'd planned, the future we'd built. I survived. You will too. This is different. It's exactly the same. Life doesn't go according to plan. You don't get rescued. You figure it out. He was crying now, which hurt my heart in that way that never stops, no matter how right you are, no matter how necessary the boundary. Mom, please. I'll pay you back. No, you won't. Because I'm not lending it to you. I'm not even considering it. What happened to you? His voice turned cold. You used to care. You used to be there. When I needed you. And there it was. The accusation I'd been waiting for. The one that made my mother guilt sing like a tuning fork. I'm not doing anything to you, Marcus. I'm just not doing it for you. There's a difference. What does that even mean? It means I love you enough to let you handle this yourself. It means I'm not going to teach you that Mom's retirement fund is your emergency account. It means you'll call your partners, you'll negotiate with the lawyer, you'll set up a payment plan, you'll figure it out. Like adults do. Vanessa was right about you. He spat it like venom. She said you'd do this. She said you'd choose yourself over us. Good. Tell Vanessa she wins. I'm choosing myself. Have you ever considered that maybe that's not the tragedy you think it is? I hung up. Then I turned off my phone. The next 3 days, I didn't turn it back on. I went to my salsa class. I had lunch with Maria and Suzanne. I took the helicopter tour in Auckland, and it was worth every penny. I watched a Maori cultural performance and cried at the beauty of the haka, at the fierceness of that warrior dance, at the way they honored their ancestors while standing fully in their own power. I thought about Marcus. I thought about the spreadsheet. I thought about $95,000 and 34 years and that toast at Thanksgiving. I thought about Vanessa's parents and $40,000 and why they'd give Marcus money when his own business had already failed once. When I finally turned my phone back on in Fiji, I had 63 missed calls, 18 from Marcus, 21 from Vanessa. The rest from numbers I didn't recognize, which were probably Marcus's partners or Vanessa's parents or people I'd never met, who nonetheless had opinions about my obligations to my adult son. There were also 47 text messages, ranging from pleading, to angry, to manipulative, to downright cruel. Vanessa's final text read, "I hope you enjoy your cruise while your son loses everything. Real mother's sacrifice." I read that one twice. Then I called Carol. "Oh, thank God," she answered. "Linda, Marcus has been calling me. He's convinced you fell overboard." "No such luck." I turned my phone off. "Did he tell you about the lawsuit?" "He did." I said no. Carol was quiet for a moment. "Good. How do you feel?" "Honestly, lighter. And also like the worst mother in the world." "You're not. You know that, right?" "Working on believing it." "Hey, remember when Marcus's car broke down that time, and he called you at midnight? You were recovering from that surgery, the one on your shoulder, and you still drove 3 hours to get him?" I did remember. He'd been 26. On a ski trip with friends, called me instead of calling AAA. I'd been in that sling for another month, couldn't lift my left arm without pain for 6. "And remember when your car broke down 2 years later, and you called him?" I didn't remember, because it hadn't happened. When my car broke down, I'd called AAA myself. Marcus had been busy. He was always busy. That's called reciprocity, Linda. Or the lack of it. You're not a bad mother. You're a human being who's allowed to have boundaries. Tell that to Vanessa. Fuck Vanessa. She's not your daughter. She married your son for 3 hours of ceremony and a marriage license. You raised him for 34 years. You've earned the right to spend your money however you want. We talked for an hour. By the time I hung up, I felt steadier. I didn't call Marcus. I finished my cruise. I took the private island dinner in Fiji, and it was magical. I did the wine tour in Chile, and I bought 6 bottles that I shipped home, bottles that cost more than I'd ever spent on wine in my life. I salsa danced with Roberto on the last night, and he told me I'd gotten good, which was probably a lie but a kind one. When I got home in late March, there was a letter in my mailbox from Marcus's lawyer, demanding I reconsider my decision to abandon my son in his time of need. I threw it away. There was also a package from Marcus and Vanessa. Inside was a photo album. Our photo album, the one I'd put together years ago of Marcus's childhood, all those birthday parties and first days of school and Little League games. A sticky note on the cover read, "Since you don't care about our future, maybe you'd like to remember the past when you actually acted like a mother." I sat on my front porch with that album for a long time, looking at Marcus at age 5, gap-toothed and muddy from baseball practice. Marcus at 12, holding up a violin he'd begged for and abandoned. Marcus at 18, heading off to college in the car I'd co-signed for and paid off. And I realized something. I did care. I'd always cared. That was never the question. The question was whether caring meant saying yes to everything, whether love meant unlimited access to my bank account, whether being a good mother meant bankrupting my retirement for my son's second try at a dream that had already failed once. The answer was no. I called my lawyer the next day, changed my will, set up a trust that Marcus would get when I died, but with conditions. Financial counseling first, a plan for sustainable living, proof he could manage money, because I did love him. I loved him enough to not teach him that failure gets rewarded with rescue. 3 weeks later, Vanessa called. "Patricia wants to talk to you." "Patricia?" "My mother. She says it's important." I almost said no, but curiosity won. Patricia and I had never been close. She was the mother-in-law who'd always made it clear Vanessa had married beneath her son, who'd spent my entire visit at their lake house explaining how they'd bought it back when property was cheap, as if I couldn't afford one, because I'd simply missed my opportunity. We met at a coffee shop. Patricia looked expensive, as always. Silk scarf, designer handbag, that haircut that costs $300 to look effortless. "Linda." She didn't smile. "Thank you for meeting me." "What's this about, Patricia?" She stirred her coffee, not drinking it. "I need you to know something. Richard and I, we gave Marcus that $40,000 for the firm. But we also made a deal with him." "What kind of deal?" "We told him that when you died, he needed to sign over your lake house to us, the one you own with your sister, the one in Minnesota. We'd forgive his debt, and we'd get the property." He agreed. I set my cup down carefully. "I don't own a lake house." "Yes, you do," Marcus told us. "Your family property, inherited from your parents, worth about $200,000. He said once you passed, it would be his, and he could do with it what he wanted. The world tilted. I don't own a lake house, Patricia. My parents didn't own a lake house. We rented a cabin there for 2 weeks every summer when I was a kid. That's it. Patricia's face went very still. You're sure? I'm completely sure. She closed her eyes. That lying little shit. It was so unexpected, hearing that from her perfectly made-up mouth, that I almost laughed. He conned us, she said. Richard and I, we gave him $40,000, thinking we'd get property worth 5 times that. We've been pressuring him to ask you for the deed early, so we could develop it, turn it into a rental property. That's why he needed your money. Because we told him if he didn't deliver the lake house, he'd have to repay our $40,000 plus interest. We sat there in that coffee shop. 2 mothers who'd been played by the same boy. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I have a daughter, and I'd want to know if she did this. And because, she looked away. Because we pushed him to push you. We told him real mothers sacrifice. We told him to use your guilt, your love. And now, I'm sitting here realizing we manipulated both of you because we wanted a lake house that doesn't even exist. What are you going to do? Demand our money back? Sue him if we have to? Richard's already talking to lawyers. She looked at me then, really looked at me. And I owe you an apology. I thought you were being selfish. I thought you were punishing Marcus. Now I see you were protecting yourself from a son who learned to lie very, very well. After she left, I sat in that coffee shop for another hour. Marcus called that evening. Mom, we need to talk. Yes. We do. Starting with the lake house that doesn't exist. Silence. Patricia told me everything. Mom, I can explain. No. You really can't. You lied to your in-laws about property you didn't have access to. Used their money for a business you can't sustain. And then tried to manipulate me into funding your legal defense because you're in debt to them for a scam that was never going to work. It wasn't a scam. I thought maybe Carol would give you her half someday, and then… Stop. Just stop. I was tired suddenly, bone tired. Marcus, I love you. I will always love you. But I don't like who you've become. I don't like the man who lies to his wife's parents, who manipulates his mother, who throws ugly toasts at Thanksgiving and sends cruel photo albums through the mail. Mom, I'm not finished. You need help, but not the kind I can give you. You need therapy. You need financial counseling. You need to figure out why you keep starting businesses that fail, why you think you're entitled to other people's money, why you can't seem to build a life within your means. I'm doing fine. You're being sued, and you're in debt to your in-laws for a non-existent lake house. That's not fine. So what do you want me to do? I want you to grow up. I want you to take responsibility. I want you to stop calling me every time life gets hard and expecting me to make it soft again. I took a breath. And I want you to know that I will be here when you're ready to do that. Not with money, with love, with support, with conversations over coffee where we talk about real things, not just what you need from me. And if I lose the lawsuit, then you lose. And you figure out what comes next, like everyone else does. He hung up on me that time. Months passed. Spring turned to summer. I planted tomatoes. I took an online watercolor class, and I was terrible at it, but I enjoyed it anyway. I went to dinner with a man from my church, and he was nice, and I didn't see him again, and that was fine too. Marcus didn't call. In September, I got a letter. Handwritten, which was rare for Marcus in the age of texts. Mom, you were right. About everything. I'm in therapy now. 2 sessions a week. Vanessa and I are separated. I lost the lawsuit, but I set up a payment plan. I'm working for another firm. Just as an architect. Not an owner. It's stable. It's boring. It's enough. Patricia and Richard are suing me for their $40,000. My lawyer says they'll probably win. I deserve that. I'm sorry. For the toast. For the Christmas I didn't invite you to. For the lake house lie. For all of it. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I needed you to know I finally see what I did. I'm working on myself. On being better. On being someone worthy of a mother like you. Marcus, I read that letter 3 times. Then I called him. Hello. He sounded uncertain, like he wasn't sure who'd be on the other end. It's Mom. Mom. Hi, did you get my letter? I did. I'm proud of you. He made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I'm a mess. We're all messes. Some of us are just better at pretending. I paused. Would you like to have lunch sometime? Really? Really. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I'm not your emergency fund. I'm not your backup plan. I'm your mother, and I love you. But my wallet is closed. If we're going to rebuild this, it has to be about us. Just us. Not what I can give you. I understand. Duh you? I'm trying to. That's what therapy is for, apparently. Learning to have relationships that aren't transactional. He was quiet for a moment. I'm really proud of you too, Mom, for that cruise. For saying no. For teaching me the hardest lesson I've ever learned. We met for lunch the next week. It was awkward at first. Like a first date where you're both trying too hard. But then he told me about his therapy, about the things he was learning about himself, about the fear that drove his need to always be building something bigger, proving something more. I told him about salsa dancing, about the helicopter tour, about turning my phone off for 3 days and discovering I could survive without checking it every 5 minutes. We didn't solve everything. We didn't hug and cry and become perfect. But we started. We started being mother and son in a way that didn't require me to shrink myself or open my wallet. We started having conversations about his life that didn't end with, "Can you help me out?" At the end of lunch, he paid. It was symbolic, probably, but it mattered. Same time next month? I asked. I'd like that. In December, he invited me to Thanksgiving. Just us. Me and you. I'll cook, or we'll order pizza, whatever you want. I said yes, and when I sat at his table this time, I was at the head, the seat of honor, where I should have been all along.